Hafere Todas Hamzu, this roundtable discussion by the Committee on Innovation, Economic, Workforce, and Youth Development is now called to order. The time is 2:10 p.m. For the record, public hearing notices were sent on Monday, November 6, 2017. In addition, this hearing was noticed on the legislature's website, www.guamlegislature.com. Written testimonies may be submitted by emailing Senator Bisco Lee at guamlegislature.org, or you may hand deliver them to our office at 163 Chalan Santo Papa here in Hagåtña. Joining me here this afternoon is Vice Speaker Therese Terlahi, as well as Senator Mary Camacho Torres, and I'd like to thank my colleagues for joining me. On the agenda, ladies and gentlemen, will be this roundtable discussion on women entrepreneurial opportunities. We recently celebrated National Women's Small Business Month here at the legislature with the resolution, and we recognize some of the key organizations on island that directly assist women in their entrepreneurial endeavors. As a follow-up to that, I wanted to hold this roundtable to provide an opportunity for those groups to share with the community or refresh the community on the various types of programs and support services that are available specifically for women in business or those who are looking to launch a business. Secondly, this roundtable will provide an opportunity for these groups to share from their firsthand perspective the biggest challenges currently facing women in business. And lastly, I want this roundtable to open up a conversation or any ideas or suggestions to either update existing laws or create new policies that will benefit women entrepreneurs. Even though we may have resources available, there may still be ways that we can better support this sector of our community. It's important that we continue to seek ways to bridge the gap for women where society leaves off and help them build their confidence in the steps toward entrepreneurship. Women have needed business ideas and skills that our community and our economy will ultimately miss out on if we don't meet them halfway. And many of us are daughters of Guam, mothers, grandmothers, and aunts. And I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege to just share how excited I am. I'm a new auntie. I just welcomed a brand new nephew into the world earlier this morning. So I wanted to just welcome him to the beautiful island of Guam. Isaiah Eusebio, if you're listening to me in your hospital room. I'm just still so excited to be able to hold him. But that really helps us to kind of think about our focus as we move forward, right? We're creating this drive to really create a very prosperous future for all of our children. And so that really helps to kind of lay the groundwork for what we'll be discussing today. So again, the goal of today's roundtable is to update the community on programs and services available to women entrepreneurs, discuss challenges facing women in business, and determine strategies to encourage women entrepreneurs to succeed. And at this time, I'd like to welcome the individuals who've signed up to testify. We have Denise Mendiola from the Guam SBDC, Vanessa Williams with the Guam Women's Chamber, Catherine Castro, also with the Guam Chamber of Commerce, and Yvonne Napati, also with the Guam Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, ladies. And Yvonne, if you'd like to join us at the table, you're more than welcome. It's okay. And Christine Lujan, sorry. Thank you all for taking the time to come down to the legislature and participate in this public hearing. In honor of National Entrepreneurship Month this month and National Women's Small Business Month in October, we really look forward to this dialogue so that we can better create an environment for economic development that focuses on the unique challenge of women. To begin, please introduce yourself and the organization you represent, as well as kind of an overview of your membership numbers and what your programs or services that you offer. Maybe Vanessa, if you could start.
Go ahead and start. Hi, so this is Vanessa, with President of the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce. As of today, we have 228 members. That's broken down into 101 corporate members, 88 individuals, and 39 nonprofit or government members. They're combined into one class of membership. Through these different members, we represent over 150 different businesses on Guam. Our vision is simple. The Guam Women's Chamber simply wants Guam to be an island community whose economy is driven and influenced equally by women. So we're talking about gender equality and gender parity. We want equal representation everywhere. We do this by promoting women leadership through our different missions, which include promoting women leadership, professional development, and growth. We provide entrepreneurial and business mentorship and networking opportunities and partnerships. We advance policy issues facing women in business and the workplace, and we increase awareness of the importance of women on the island's economic, social, and cultural platforms. Now, the way we accomplish these missions and achieve our vision are through different programs and services that we offer. In relation to promoting women leadership, professional development, and growth, we do this through our bi-monthly meetings. We do this through monthly trainings and workshops. We have an annual leadership conference that usually has about 100 attendees. This year, when we had high tide in February, we had over 250 participants. We also provide scholarships to higher education students at UOG, GCC, and Pacific Islands University, and we've steadily increased that. So this year we awarded $7,500. Next year we're looking at increasing that to $10,000. In terms of providing mentorship to entrepreneurs and businesses and networking opportunities, again, we have our meetings and our monthly trainings. We also promote our members and their businesses, of course, a lot of women-owned. We also facilitate mentorship opportunities. So it's a little informal right now, but if you're within our network, you know that we create a lot of partnerships just between them and even our meetings. But we also are facilitating and launching an online members network program for our members in which it allows the mentors and mentees to directly contact each other on their terms. So it's their own professional network. Like we have social media network, this is our chamber network. We also, in terms of advancing policy issues facing women in business and the workplace, we host panels and conversations with candidates for office in election years. I believe we've had all of you senators, and in non-election years, we ensure that we have conversations with you to check in with our leaders where we're going. We also host biannual wage and compensation forums where we bring together economists, policymakers, the legislators, HR and labor representatives to discuss the gender wage gap. We'd like to increase awareness of the importance of women on the island's economic, social, and cultural platform by continuing to host these conversations, of course, representing our members across all, at every opportunity, including this one. So thank you for allowing us to share about our programs.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Christine? Oh, Kathy, okay. Great, thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, just press that, there you go. Afade, my name is Catherine Castro, and I'm with the Guam Chamber of Commerce. Guam Chamber of Commerce has a membership of over 450 members, business members, and of our membership, we employ over 45,000 people on Guam, and our membership makes up 70% of the gross island product. The Chamber Business Women's Network is a program of the Guam Chamber of Commerce, established in 2011, designed to bring women professionals together to enhance personal and professional growth, allowing for participants to connect with other women of all career levels to strengthen professional networks and engage in the Guam business community. There are three specific programs of the Chamber Business Women's Network. And one of them is a professional development aspect of the program. Then we have an educational roundtable aspect of the program. And then we have an outreach program called the NINA Project. And I'm pretty sure you're aware of it. And that is a program that focuses on building self-confidence and developing leadership capabilities in our youth, in our school youth. And so in the NINA Project, we have two programs very, very specific to the program, and one is called Operation Prom, and the other is called the Own It Youth Forum. So with Operation Prom, we reach out to the community and we seek gently used gowns and suits and accessories to be able to provide the opportunities for young people so that they can avail themselves of these products so they can go to the prom. And then the other is the Own It Youth Forum. And the goal of this forum is to motivate, inspire, and influence students to amplify their leadership skills, as well as to understand and own their individual strengths and abilities to achieve their future life objectives. And so this is an invitation-only event, and it's open to juniors and seniors, and we have this event once a year, and it involves members of the Guam Chamber of Commerce, and we are able to outreach to about 70 students, and this is our second year to do this, so we're very confident that every year we will get additional support so that we can reach out to more students. So again, this is a small portion of what the Guam Chamber of Commerce does, but it's very specific to women professionals on Guam. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And Denise?
Oh, it's the bottom.
Hafa Senators, thank you for having us today. My name is Denise Mendiola. I'm the Senior Business Advisor at the Guam Small Business Development Center and Program Coordinator for the Bank of Guam Women in Business Program. I've been there since 2005, and in that amount of time, we've been able to provide a great array of assistance to women-owned businesses, in addition to male-owned businesses. But our primary mission at the Small Business Development Center is to help improve the economic development of U.S. Pacific affiliated islands by providing one-to-one business advisement services that are free and confidential, and high-quality training programs to people who want to start businesses or who want to expand their business. So in that amount of time, we've been able to assist about 85 women start businesses and infuse $3.2 million, as well as help 7 buy businesses in the amount of about $647,000. We've helped women expand their business. There were about 52 in the amount of $3.5 million. And then we've also helped over 2,500 women counseling sessions in that amount of time. So that's a span of about 12 years. So we've been busy, and we're very excited to be able to see women start their business, expand, do their succession plan, and turn it over to someone else. In the other extension services that we have as part of my job is to also create other programs. So we were instrumental in helping with the NAWIC ladies to be able to start their organization, as well as the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce. We've also been able to assist the Center for Economic and Initiatives in the University of Guam to be able to start up their programs. So in that amount of time, we've also been able to create other programs. One in particular that I'm very much involved with right now is the Farmer Training Program. So this is a really big project that we're working on with the theme to be able to help provide local living economies in our island. And so with that, we're working on several projects that are related to how food security is going to be the mission when we help people to be able to start their farm businesses and value-added businesses.
Thank you so much, Denise. Maybe if we could go around the table just once more and share maybe what policy initiatives I'm sorry, let me back up. I would like to discuss maybe specific challenges that maybe you faced when either in your programs or when you're encountering some of the clients or the people that you serve as they're starting up. So maybe some specific challenges that women in business or your organizations are facing. Vanessa?
So I know that a lot of, not just women in business, but I think this is in general to all people in business, especially, and when I say in business, a lot of our entrepreneurs, there's a big number of our membership or percentage of our membership that they're solopreneurs. You know, they're starting up, and they lack in resources, access, substantive and financial, so they don't know where to go. A lot of times I'm referring people to SBDC, where we use it, they're availing of our programs, where we had a series of programs basically from start to finish, how to start a business, from taxes to marketing, HR. So they're lacking in that and access to credit. They're looking for, small amounts of money, relatively small. You're talking 5 to 10,000, but something they don't think they'd qualify at a bank for. So that's one thing, and I think that's common to anyone who's starting a business. We also see a lot of complaints about the regulatory challenges, and I don't think this is new. And I experienced this myself. I'm a lawyer with my clients, and you don't necessarily need a lawyer to go get a business license, but you almost do because they encounter so much red tape. They've got to go through so many agencies, or they get their paperwork pushed back to them, and they say it's not, it doesn't work, and without any solutions, and so there's I think a big problem lacking in the client services department with the government. There's still a lot of obstacles there for new businesses. I think the third thing I see, the biggest challenge and this is the biggest challenge and most specific to women, is underrepresentation. We're underrepresented everywhere, in the private sector and in the government. This is the most blaring challenge. We know, there's been studies done by global management consulting companies that diversity in boards, diversity in the workplace leads to greater successes. So this isn't a charitable case for putting women out there. It's the bottom line, and a lot of businesses are hurting because women aren't equally represented at the table. And again, this goes back to boards, management at every level. I think that, well, maybe this goes into the solutions part, but once that's addressed, then maybe you'll see some of these other disparities that are, a lot of us are familiar with, like the pay disparity between men and women will be addressed. Thank you.
Go ahead, Chris.
Christine Lujan. I'm the chair for the Chamber Business Women's Network, and I'll just talk about women in general because Kat will kind of touch more on the policy initiatives and those issues. But I'll talk on women in general, and just to further what Vanessa was saying. A lot of the women in our committee and even across our chamber membership, have issues with building a support network. Really that is one reason why we kind of revived this committee from its, I guess its little break, but just helping them own their accomplishments, right? Other women, and I think the great thing that you did, Senator Lee, when you recognized, International Business Women's Week, and you did the resolution. I think that is one way to just put it out there more, right? And this roundtable discussion, a lot of things that come up. We do these educational and forum development events, really just kind of honing in on what these women are asking of their chamber, right? It's how do I balance my business and family life? How do I cope with my fear of failure or overextending myself? And it goes back to the resources, right? And so that's kind of where we feel at our level we can deliver on that. And we're just a small committee of the chamber, but I think that that's a lot of what we see, is that either it's a regulatory issue or something higher at the top that's keeping them from succeeding at their level, right? So yeah, that's kind of what we see going on in our committee as well.
So at the organizational level, the Small Business Development Center is part of a huge network in the United States, and it's part of the ASBDC. There are about 63 networks and over 1,500 centers funded under SBA. They received less funding this year than they did last year, but the organizations locally, or our organization at least, is pretty, I would say, well funded and established. And one of the things that is going to be affecting the funding here is the change of funding that's going to be happening in Micronesia in 2018. So there's word that GEMCO is going to be changing how they're going to be funding their governments beginning 2018 fiscal year, October, going into the next year. which is going to, I would say, directly impact the funding of those islands. And the reason why I say that is because it affects our operations on Guam as well. So that's going to be something that's going to change next year. As far as the Women in Business program, we really focus a lot more on the networking, the support, the extension of services outside of the counseling and training. So we work a lot with our other organizations to be able to find out what those needs are for those women. And then we do a lot of triage, so we send them to the resources. And some of the activities that we're doing now is SBDC, because we're not experts, we're not attorneys, we're not industry experts. We partner with other folks that are and send our clients out into into those areas. So we provide to them the list of the Guam Bar Association, things like that, the Guam Accountancy Board. We also have a business resource guide. And then we partner with other organizations that have those services and then send them that way. So we know that there's a network available. There's a lot more that can be done. And I think that those things should start happening very soon, because I know that a lot of these women are already working on it. It's just a matter of when they're going to go, and get it solidified and go public with their information. But I know that they're already working on projects to increase the network, increase the resources that are available to the women. So as far as challenges, it's just making sure that, generally speaking, women on Guam, they always seem to have the same challenge, and that is an interruption in their career life, right? Because they have to have babies, right? And when you have to have a baby, as we know, you have to take some time away from work. So what happens is that limits their ability to get loans in some cases, and it limits the ability for them to be able to have access to capital. So there are some gaps that we need to be able to identify and pinpoint resources to help those women that can't get maybe a traditional loan by themselves, or are there other resources like crowdfunding, maybe some other network grant funding that can provide that bridge fund that allows them that seed money until they can start growing the business and then grow organically from there.
That's helpful. Thank you very much. And maybe we'll just go back to Vanessa about the policy initiatives, or maybe any ideas for new legislation that we might be able to consider that could assist your missions really relating to enabling women in business and business endeavors. And I know you talked a little bit about some of the challenges with regulatory challenges, and you were mentioning some red tape. And so as a small business owner, I just remembered when I was first starting out just a few years ago, my case was a little bit unique. It didn't take me that long to be able to go through the process and get my business license, but that's because I was in consulting. And so I went to my clients. I didn't necessarily set up a shop. If somebody sets up a shop, then they go into all of these other different aspects, and they'd have to get, permits and fire inspections and all of that, those things. So I think that's an issue that's not just an issue for women in business, it's an issue for all people who are trying to start a business. So I think the more that we're able to target what it is that, how we can find a solution and how we can kind of streamline those processes, it'll end up helping everybody. So yeah, Vanessa, if you could just maybe give us an idea.
Well, I had a couple specific proposals, but and I wasn't going to even attempt to address the regulatory challenges. But it is kind of, I think one thing that actually just popped into my mind is one of my clients, and actually for a few of them, when we're dealing with the Department of Revenue and Taxation, where you start, and there's several different branches there doesn't seem to be communication sometimes within the different divisions or branches. And so one tells you to do one thing and the other one tells you to do other ones. And I can say, for certain, I've done the same type of business license several times over and had at least 3 different requirements. A lot of times I'm asking if they have, I'm looking for regulations. I can say at least for one area of the law, this is the foreign exchange law. They're supposed to adopt regulations. They have not. And that would make it a lot easier if we had rules that they were supposed to adopt. And rather than it be escalating into a debate about what the law means, and which is where we eventually go. And I'm sure this applies in other areas. And then maybe, I don't know if this is a regulatory, a matter of them adopting the regulations or just more internal communications to streamline the process, because it doesn't, it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the private sector. It doesn't help the government's bottom line, and it doesn't even help them in their daily jobs to have to repeat the same thing over and over again. So I'm not sure how to affect that, but it just seems that, for every, it'd be encouraging to have a set of policy and rules everywhere they're supposed to do, so that there isn't even the appearance of decisions being arbitrary. That's the last thing we want. So that, I think that addresses the regulatory, that's what just springs to mind in terms of the regulatory issue. But the proposals that I think that we'd like to explore, and looking back at the Women's Chamber issue of being underrepresented, that maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe could be addressed legislatively. There are two things. So one is very simple, or at least I like to think so. They say in math, an elegant solution is something that achieves a maximum effect or the desired effect in the simplest way possible. Well, my proposal is that to revisit Guam's, or look at gender balance legislation. Right now, Guam, for GCA 2105, addresses representation of both genders on boards, and each board or commission that has at least 4 members has to have at least 2. But when that number goes up, the proportionate number of women doesn't go up. It's still just 2 women. So it would be nice to see statutorily just make it equal, and that be simple, proportionate. So everywhere going forward, every time we're appointing and we're filling these boards and commissions, and I don't know exactly how many there are, but I always hear of them looking for more people, make it women. And I think that I'm starting to see, we address this back in the private sector. There's been the case for gender parity is a profit-driven one, not a charitable one. And there are big gains and efficiencies to be gained out of it, and I don't see why that wouldn't translate to the government, or the government can lead the way in that. I know not all private sector, private boards do that. I know some of them I sit on, but the ones I think that are more progressive I've seen have looked, we really want another woman. We need another woman at the table. So that's something I think that could be addressed. And then the other area or space that's kind of related in terms of representation of women in government is revisiting the role of the Bureau of Women's Affairs. The Bureau of Women's Affairs was established by Public Law 2123. In 2009, Governor Felix Camacho signed Executive Order 8814, putting the Bureau of Women's Affairs under the Department of Labor, where I believe the late Ruth Leon Guerrero was the administrator. And the law, or at least that's what the title, I guess, was referred to in the law. I think when reading it, it sounds like it, I mean, and then we can go back at the legislative intent, but that this was anticipated to be something that was cabinet level, or at least needs to be cabinet level to see and affect real change. So it'd be working in hand with all the other bureaus, stats, plans, Department of Labor, and even maybe looking at the data and the boards and commissions to make sure we are addressing parity and equality for women across the government. So I think those are the two places that I think we would, would address the underrepresentation issue that we'd like to start looking at. Thank you.
Certainly, what we have been discussing is actually the first bullet point on my policy initiatives, and certainly it is to make Guam a more business-friendly place to do business. We've talked about it streamlining, making it more efficient. We've often talked about at the chamber, why we're living in this great world of technology, and our government agencies don't speak to each other. They're not connected. You know, why, I mean, to be so inefficient to get a business license, and then yet you have to go to the, you know, Department of Land Management, the fire department. You know, why can't you just go to the Revenue and Taxation, and they're all talking to each other. It's all on the computer. Every place else in the United States does it. Why can't we? And I don't think that, I think it's really a matter of purpose and a matter of priority for the government. And I think it'll happen, but it just needs to be a priority. Another thing too is an online registration for anything, to pay, to open a business. Again, if we can be connected through social media and all of these, you know, we live in a great time, a wonderful time to do business, but we're not utilizing the resources that we have at our fingertips. So honestly, if we as a community can make this a priority, I truly believe that we will see more entrepreneurs, more people wanting to start their small businesses, because it's efficient and it's easy. When you make things easy for somebody, then people will do it. Even if it's a perception that it's hard, they don't want to do it, right? So if it looks easy and you know, you kind of walk everybody through the process and everybody's doing it, you'll see more folks wanting to do this, and this is not just for women. This is for everybody. And what we see is that when we create opportunity, then it benefits the entire community. Yeah. So another thing too is, as a community, government and private sector, we really, really need to emphasize workforce development. It's so important. Because when we emphasize developing our skills, developing qualifications, I really believe that we will see less of that parity that we're talking about with Vanessa. And I think that we just really need to support our young people and give them the resources, the tools, not even young people, people who are just interested. If you're in a job, or if you're an adult, and maybe you took time off to have children and start your family, right? You want to come back in, or you want to do something different. What types of resources do we have that makes it easy for folks to get skilled and develop qualifications and be able to do what they want to do? So, and then just to have that opportunity, and not just in the schools, in the Department of Education, talk to the kids and be able to show them the opportunities that there are available out there. I mean, there's jobs that we could be developing, but maybe people are not aware that they exist, right? So if people are exposed, and then we'll be able to have the skills and the qualifications available for folks. And then another thing too is develop incentives for people that are interested in becoming an entrepreneur. Incentives for women, incentives for new industry development. When you look at other states or other cities, they do so well in offering incentives. Sure, there's some, the QCs are great, but there are some issues in reference to that. But there's different types of incentives that can be created, and you can put a cap. It doesn't have to be forever. It doesn't have to be 20 years. Maybe it's just to get you started, 5 years, 10 years, and then you revisit it. So whatever that incentive is, to promote the opportunity to do business on Guam. And obviously we want to start here. We want to start at home, right? And to develop any type of new industry. But if they know that those incentives are available, and certainly between the opportunities here at the table with the chambers of commerce and the program with the women in business, we help provide the information out into the community, and then again, I'm gonna probably say something that you probably won't like. I'm gonna say, don't over legislate. Certain things that we feel in the business community that maybe market forces will dictate how things develop, how they grow or not grow. Because when something doesn't grow, maybe then something else will take its place, right? But for the most part, I think that market forces support growth, and if we don't over-legislate, then there's opportunities for development. I won't take up any more time, sorry. Yeah.
Well, we all agree on everything the ladies have said. I think we've had many conversations about these things. But just in my area, just two main gaps that we're seeing that we would really love to see happen. The first one is food security. So food security is an issue, obviously, here on our island. When the ships stop coming, you heard that. So how much time do we have before we run out of food? So as it relates to women, a lot of times women need some time to be able to start their business, don't have the flexibility to maybe go to work when the kids are at home. They cannot afford daycare. So an option would be, and this is, could be for any business, is to be able to have a food cottage business model. So this would require legislation. It could be a challenge to set it up, but it's being done in other places. It can be restricted to just provide value-added food, fresh produce, to limited markets. It could be at the farmer's market, the flea market, it could be door-to-door. So with this type of model, it allows a person to be able to grow food in their home, become a market gardener, take that extra produce that they have, turn it into a value-added product like a pickle, whatever it is, which also provides longevity for that food. And it gives them extra income for their home. And it also provides an environment where the whole family can get involved. The kids will be eating it, the family's eating it. And I think that when there is a question about safety and sanitation, I find it hard to believe that a mom's going to put her kids' safety in jeopardy by not, providing the best sanitary standards for them. When we're talking about providing controls for it, we have multitude of training programs available, whether it's at GCC, UOG. We have a food scientist at UOG. We have a department at UOG where they can help provide labeling support. $20 helps you do everything, ingredients, everything. So the support is there. It's just a matter of opening the door to be able to do it. And I personally have received pushback by several folks in the agencies. But I think it's just because maybe they don't understand the outcomes, the deliverables. If you look past the sanitary controls, what are all of the opportunities that these families can have if they're able to grow their own food? So that's one, a food cottage business. And this is being done in Hawaii and in many other cities around, and California is a big one. The second one is providing a model for family child care services where women can be able to start their family child care services in their home with a certain number of kids without all of the same restrictions that a child care center has, because they just provided more restrictions again in the last few years. So it's been really challenging I have a lot of women that come in and they want to start a child care center. We work through the numbers and they walk away because they're not making any money, they're losing money. And then that it costs between $400 to $600 for a child care center for one child. So and so the opportunity is, do I spend that much money, go to work, 2 jobs to pay for that, or do I stay home with my child and get on a subsidy program because it makes more money that way? So that would again require legislative support to open up those 2 doors that are gaps right now that are basically stopping a woman in particular from being able to support her family and to be able to provide resources to other people. Thank you.
Thank you all. We really appreciate the feedback and you know, your forthrightness and your honesty with regards to some of the challenges that we're facing. And I definitely want to open it up to my colleagues for any remarks or questions or concerns or ideas that they might have. One potential area that maybe we might be able to look into is legislation that would maybe give priority in government of Guam procurement processes to women-owned businesses, similar to the priority that's given to service members, service-disabled veterans, and other groups that may need additional attention. So I wanted to kind of get your feedback on that and then open it up to my colleagues for any other questions they might have. Vanessa?
I'm not sure what the preference right now is. I think I recall for the veteran-owned business, they get like a 5% preference. So that would be a great start. I think it's an incentive. I'm not sure. I mean, I think it would be good. I'm not sure how it would be measured, or you know, how we could ensure that that was being carried out. With a lot of things, I think go through the RFP process, and so they are able to use other qualitative factors, and I don't know how you would, we'd have to address it so that you could, I guess, incorporate. I think I'd like to see it incorporated so that it could be applied equally across the board, so that you're not just, you can use another, you know, the RFP process to get around it.
We would probably look at the current WOSB model that is being used by SBA. The challenge with that WOSB model is that it's restricted to certain NAICS codes. And those NAICS codes are virtually unheard of on Guam. So nobody's using it. Nobody's been able to do it here. It's a self-certification, so nobody's really watching. And then the other challenge is that if they were to move into a third-party certification, they would need a third party that's going to manage it. So the question is, who's going to have that responsibility? One of the things maybe to measure is, and one of the things I've noticed with these folks when this became a thing, was how do we know that it really is a woman-owned small business, other than the fact that it's 51% owned? But we've had it where people were taking advantage of that. They were putting their wife in there as the owner, but who was really managing it? So being able to control that, I think, I mean, it's manageable, but that's something to consider. And I think that's written up in the rules and regs of the, I forgot what it's called, but it can be done. It's just, you would have to have a measurement, right, to be able to capture the data. Right now, I think revenue tax does not capture women or veterans, and I think that was a question that came up before. How do you capture those areas that the federal government is capturing so that we're in line? We don't have that right now on Guam.
Thank you. I was particularly interested, Denise, in some of the things that you were talking about, the local living economies, the farm, because one of the things that always concern me when we look at opportunities that are there for people is they generally appeal to those that are already in a privileged category. They're either educated, they have some access to information, or have something that would enable them to take a step further. But what I'm particularly interested in is growing the cottage industries on Guam and those microeconomies that appeal to the women and families who don't have the opportunity to leave the home, either because they're caring for children or caring for elderly people, or just have some circumstance that their preference is to not leave the home, or they don't have transportation. Yeah. And we see in our neighboring Asian countries that don't have a social welfare system or any safety net, where people are forced to become self-reliant. And what I'd really want to, I was just so refreshed to listen to everything you have going on. Not that I didn't know about them, but it's just great to hear it again, to hear what initiatives you're taking and how you're appealing to younger people. But I think what I'm very interested in right now is how do we reach those people that really are, have a high school education at most, or not even, but otherwise have some talent and some desire to be self-sufficient. Because right now, if you consider how 40% of our population is on some sort of assistance or living at a certain poverty level, that's just devastating. It doesn't speak well for a community, and that suggests that there are people that that need to be reached not by. They need the tools to help themselves, and it's not for lack of desire or lack of dignity that they don't get there. And so that's just what I believe, because I think that if we can create those sorts of industries where farming is one thing, but we also have needs within a small community of people who aren't transient, who need those services as simple as grooming services, haircuts for children, nail care for elderly people. You know, it's very basic human quality of life things that we need, that many people can do. And one of the things that I also ran across in speaking to people as I mill around, like at the farmer's market and stuff, the regulations, as you spoke about, Vanessa, are just onerous. I mean, there's some people that want to pick fruit and cut the fruit and serve it on but they can't out of their backyards because they require certain washing conditions and certain. So there has to be a way that we can at least have a special controlled program that would allow for those circumstances, because we do know that there are a lot of people in our community who can and will and really want to, who don't want to be on the public welfare system, or certainly don't want their children to inherit their culture of a public health system. And I think that we have the ability to break that cycle, or at least start taking steps to break that cycle, because we know that poverty, you know, in order to break it, it really takes 3 generations, more or less, to wean the family out of that pattern, right?
Yeah.
But we also recognize that there are people that don't have the means. They're either not educated, don't have access to education, or simply can't leave the home. Yeah. So what do we do with them? But yeah, I'd like to, you know, all is good with those that are already in a privileged position, and more power to them. But I think what our focus needs to be is, what do you do with those others who are kind of caught in this black hole? That's really what I'm most interested in, is how do we get them? Because we know that model exists in our neighbors, with our neighbors, where they are able to, and the government does not prevent them from living off of the land or providing services within their small contained community. That's, you know, of course, it has to be reasonable and it has to be safe. But there's value, so how do we capture that value? And that's what I'd be very interested in talking to you further, because I think it's fantastic. Everything that each of you do in your respective areas is fantastic. But maybe we can refocus on another segment of society that maybe doesn't fit the mold for even entering those programs.
Yeah.
But no, Jesus Masi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just wanted to thank you to the chair for this roundtable. I think it's very helpful. I've been a small business owner for over 25 years, and so I understand everything you're saying, and I can relate to all of those concerns. Some of them, of course, been going on for years. Number one concern for all business owners is probably the regulatory agencies, how they have to interact with them, and whether they're efficient or not, of course. So yeah, across the board. And but I've seen many improvements over the years. We have become online for certain things, which is to now I can't believe I can pay my GRT online. That's great, right? I still find it, you know, I guess because we just expect, we're not expecting things to be that efficient, and I'm still like, this is going to end soon, but it's been very good. So, and then, you know, they're getting to allow credit card payments for many things now online, and that's a good service, paying GPA, GWA, solid waste. Sometimes they go off, but those kind of things I think are helping. But I very much appreciate that some of the basics will probably always be necessary to improve the representation of women in business, women in certain industries especially, and in government. And maybe not always by a preference, but by the things that you actually are doing. So I'm very excited, just like Senator Torres said, I'm very excited by what you're actually doing. Your networking, we can't ever get away from that. It really is very important because networking is where information flows. And yes, I agree, we have to find a way to network where we have gaps right now, right? And I'm sure you're all working hard on that. I think we can all help with that how do we get this great stuff that you all are doing, particularly, the micro business concepts really functioning, and how do we get those out, and how do we just help everybody get through the regulatory agencies and all the work that you're doing, kind of just get them into the gaps, get that work done in those gaps of people that might not be hearing about it or having access to them right now. Information is critical, I agree, and the federal government, of course, they operate by preference, and they collect data. But yes, our data is, that's one of the things I feel like we can't get enough of, right? And it's only going to help us to get more data and to be able to analyze that. And I'm sure if our agencies collect it, you all will have your own ways of analyzing it and using it and coming up with different scenarios and different ideas based on different ways of analyzing the data. So that's why I really believe data's got to be put up for everybody's use. What I'm most excited about, I guess, are the concepts of we are a small community, but we are also we're part of a global community, yet women, I think, can really play a role in bringing sustainability to our businesses, making our economy overall sustainable, and that's what I'm really excited about. I think all of your roles and all, you've got organizations and working on these things, and I just think it's only going to help us get there faster, where we are a sustainable economic community, a sustainable community of a life that we appreciate, a good quality of life for all of our people. And so I am very excited. I want to thank you all for taking the time to actually work. I see you all did homework with all the questions, and so I very much appreciate that. And these are very helpful, and so I hope we can continue this. And thank you for your personal work. I think I know all of you. You've been doing this for a while, and all your organizations that are behind you for all their support. I very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Speaker. And finally, I just wanted to take an opportunity to open up the table for any additional topics that you'd like to discuss that you feel are important to this subject. So if anybody has like a last final word that you want to add into or additional topic, feel free.
I think when Senator Torres was talking about, how do we create those programs, or how do we serve people who are underprivileged or not privileged, it's easier when you have a step up to avail of all the opportunities. And I think that as Catherine was talking about workforce development, it did bring back to my mind, which isn't just a women's issue in particular, but does relate to our poverty level, is seeing where universal pre-K is going to go. I don't know if that's something that can still be addressed or expanded on, and it's something that kind of stalled and slowed down at DOE, but just talking about it just brings to my mind that's always going to be a fundamental problem. You're always going to be behind as long as the kids are behind in school. If all those kids who are not privileged, they could avail of so much, gain so many in years by starting school earlier. And that problem is going to follow us for the next 15, 18, or their whole lifetime. And so everything we do right now almost seems it's short term. It's addressing solutions, but if we really want to not be, it seems like if we don't want to be having this conversation 15 years, 30 years down the road, we're going to have to really start at the root cause. And I think that's, I don't know, maybe as a new mom, my daughter's 2, and I'm thinking about that. That's really become at the forefront of my mind as well. Just thinking all these opportunities I can provide for my daughter that, you know, most people cannot. And it's, and I want her to grow up in a community where everyone has the same opportunities, and that's just not the case right now. So I think until we address kind of that fundamental issue, we're still going to be behind.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So, you know, these ladies are all about action, right? So I know they're just saying, okay, what's next? We talked, so now what do we do? So what's the next step? Do you go, you know, talk about this with your colleagues and say, okay, do we want to take on any of these projects? Or, you know, you come back to us and say, okay, we want to do this. Now we all get together and start working as a committee. So we're ready to roll. We've been talking about these things with other people for a while, and it's like falling on deaf ears because the priority is not the same, right, for other people. And but we are always on, you know, we may differ in some areas, but we always agree that we need to go this direction, and we'll all fall in line. So it's just a matter of, okay, give us some direction of what you think we could do with some of these things, and then we got our people, and we're ready to go.
Again, I just want to echo what some of my colleagues have mentioned, that we're just so grateful for your time and your attention and your homework that you've done to be prepared for this meeting. We really, really appreciate that. And certainly there's a number of things that, I mean, I'm just trying to put these asterisks on all of these like gold star action items for us to go take a moment to take a look at what we think is the most feasible, maybe the easiest fruit to pick, I think would be low-hanging fruit is what we want. And also, I just, again, want to thank my colleagues for being here today. I think that these are prime examples of leaders in our community who are working full-time for you. We're here, we're listening, we're very engaged, and I'm looking forward to working with them and encouraging all the rest of our colleagues to, you know, take our lead in this. So yeah, definitely, Denise, I think it's really important that we're having this, you know, not necessarily initial conversation, but, you know, this public conversation, and we certainly welcome those who are watching on TV or who might view this later on YouTube to contact my office. But I also want to give all of you the opportunity to share your contact information, because if they heard something from each of your organizations that they might want to avail of, a service or a project that you're working on, I definitely want them to be able to connect with you, or they can connect through my office. I'm happy to facilitate that. But maybe, Vanessa, if you can just give a website or phone number for them to contact the Guam Women's Chamber, and then we can just share contact information before we wrap up.
The Guam Women's Chamber, our office is in the Bank of Guam building in Upper Tulan in front of the East-West Wenchel Center. Our number is 646-3426, and our executive director can be contacted at ed@guamwcc.com.
Again, with the Guam Chamber of Commerce, our website is guamchamber.com.gu. My email address is ccastro@guamchamber.com.gu. You can also reach us at 472-8001, or on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram.
And I'm Denise Mendiola with the Guam Small Business Development Center. We're located at the University of Guam in the Leon Guerrero School of Business building. And our phone number is 735-2590, and you can Google us. We have website, Facebook, I think Instagram. We're everywhere, so you can stumble on us.
Again, we just want to thank each of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here and represent your organizations and represent women entrepreneurs and all our small businesses on our island. It's important that we keep the services that you offer really fresh in people's minds and continue this conversation for the betterment of our island, for Guam's women and Guam's families, but also, you know, our economy and our island as a whole. So, Sidus Maasi, Todus Hamdu, Porifinatan Mizu Pagu. This roundtable discussion is now adjourned at 3:09 p.m. Individuals who wish to submit testimony will have 10 days from today to do so by emailing it to Senator Bisco Lee at guamlegislature.org, or you may hand deliver any information to 163 Chalan Santa Papa here in Aganya. Sidus Masi.
Thank you. Sizos Masi.